Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OTF Connects. My name is Susan Watt, and I will be your moderator tonight. My job is to be in the background and support all of you in your use of this tool, Blackboard Collaborate, and answer any questions and help Julie out if necessary. Our facilitator tonight for this exciting session is Julie Balin, and Julie teaches on Manitoulin Island, and you're looking at a map that she's going to talk a little bit about. Julie and I met briefly at a technology conference just this fall down in Niagara Falls, so it was a brief visit, but I'm excited to hear more about the great work that she's doing, connecting her students with others locally and around the world. So Julie, thank you very much. We're really excited to have you here tonight. I think for your first OTF Connects webinar, isn't it? So I'm going to turn my mic off now and turn things over to Julie. Warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yes, it is my first OTF webinar as a presenter, as a facilitator, so I'm really excited to be here. And thank all of you for joining in tonight into this session. And I'd like to introduce myself and my journey to global learning before we jump right into it. The picture you're looking at that Susan made reference to is that of Manitowoc Bay. This is where I live. My daughter, who was flying home to Toronto from Thunder Bay, happened to look out the aircraft window, only to realize that she was flying over Manitoulin Island. She exclaimed this with surprise to her dance partner, who was sitting in the seat beside her, her shock that she would be seeing her home, the island where she comes from. And of course, he promptly disbelieved her. Like, what are the chances that you would be seeing your home? So she turned back to the window, and there below her now was not just the island, but our actual house. This is the picture she took that day. And this, if I can make this pointer work, this is my house down here in the bottom left-hand corner. I hope you can see that. And so what this, and I'm just going to finish off by saying this, if you come down along here, and on the bottom of the bay like this, I hope you're seeing my pointer, and all the way up around. Now I'm in Wikwemikong, which is where I teach, the Wikwemikong community, Wikwemikong Board of Education, all the way over here to my school, which is right here. So this is an absolutely fabulous picture, and I share it with you because I think that the story illustrates the power of serendipity, the possibility of chance that comes to us if we're open to it. Like, serendipity is one of the themes in my work. So much can be offered to us, I think, just because we're open to the possible. I mean, Michaela, my daughter, looked at the window because it was a nice day, and then she saw her home, and I think that just shows that we can all do that if we just take the time to look and see. So and the other thing that happens is that many people wonder at the likelihood of a success of global projects when they don't live in an urban area or urban region. And that's another reason why I love this shot. Making connections with others is possible no matter who you are or where you are. That's a second theme in my work, the theme of connecting. And so with those two opening ideas, it really is a different, with those two opening ideas of serendipity and connection, I want us to think about global learning. And here I want you to think about what is global learning? What does it mean to you? What skills do you need to have to be a global learner? Why global learning? And how does global learning connect with classes and courses you need to teach? So I would love you to try your hand at writing out your ideas on the slide. So using some of the tools in the navigation bar, in the toolbar, or putting your thoughts in the chat. And think about what global learning means to you. What skills do you need to have to be a global learner? I ask these questions because for a really long time I never thought of myself as a global as a teacher who was participating or working in global learning. And it took me some time to kind of understand that. So I'm kind of curious to hear or see what you have to say about global learning. And if somebody wants to pick up the mic, you can do that too. Right, right. Great thinking there, Melanie. It's about perspectives for sure, and thinking about, and we have to think about this idea of privilege that we've been tossing around in the last little while. Yeah, absolutely. Open-mindedness, curiosity. Yeah. Seeing ourselves in the global context, and in any context, really, any context beyond our own community. So for sure. Yep, breaking down walls. I like that, Bernadine. I like the idea of like getting rid of the constraints. Yep, connecting global and local environments. That's a really big connection for me, because I think it's important to try and find ways to get our students' voices out beyond their own environment. So what are the local issues and how does that connect to the bigger issues? Yeah, that's good. I like that, Watson, the idea of the horizon, and thinking about the paradigms and the worldviews, right? So how can we see it one way, or how can we see an issue another way? Yeah, so that really great ideas all around. And I think that, we have this idea of the 21st century competencies about critical thinking and problem solving, and all of your ideas touch on those themes, those big ideas. Recognizing perspectives, the idea of taking action too. How can we take our ideas and our thinking and move them into action? And sometimes we think of it has to be something major, like some major issue, but that's not necessarily true. We can work on really small things locally as well. Yeah, exactly. Young people can make a difference in the world, and we've got some really good role models in the world that our students can look to. Even in coming out of Wikwemikong, we have Autumn Pelche. We have Autumn Pelche, who's waging the war on water, trying to raise the attention about the need for us to take care of our water. And so the young people who can make a difference can come from everywhere, from anywhere. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to take us to the next slide, and I want us to think about, again, just thinking about these themes that I've been talking about, that serendipity and this idea of connecting and collaborating, being open to new learning opportunities, and connecting with teachers who want to flatten the walls of their classrooms, collaborating to design unique and meaningful learning events. For me, that's where it's at. So I've got this idea of serendipity, connecting, collaboration, and finding those people. And how do you do that? Well, for me, Twitter was really important. I started here really slowly. I had no plan. I just had the desire to try. And it took me a long, long time to get going and make some meaningful connections, so connections that started to offer me opportunities to collaborate. So I'm a fan of Twitter, and it offers all of the things I'm looking for in learning. It's open-ended, it's open 24/7, except that maybe some people say it's not really open-minded anymore. So we have to worry about the filter bubble a little bit. So Twitter gave me a lot of opportunities, and one of them was the opportunity of getting to know flat classrooms, or flat connections as it's called today. This is an organization or a group that's run by Julie Lindsay, and it's an organization that has multiple types of projects. So no matter who you are, whether you're just entering into the idea of global projects or you have some experience and you want to dive into a deeper, richer project, Julie's group offers a lot of variety. For the teenage set, she has Friends for Sustainability, which is connected to the global goals. So those United Nations Sustainable Goals have generated a lot of different global projects, and Julie has one of them. It's for 10 to 14-year-olds. She has another one called Digiteen, and that one is a global digital citizenship project for 10 to 14-year-olds. And then she has her Flat Connection project, which is that really robust, rich, multi-layered, multi-platform project. Now, her projects don't come for free, so you'd have to investigate that and decide whether that was something for you. But certainly there's a range of projects. And I had a teacher who decided to get involved in what was then called the Flat Classroom Project, and I supported her in that work. And that was an entry point for her and for me, and thinking about how to generate, how to design a project. And so that's the fourth theme for me, is the design factor. How do we design rich, engaging, curricular opportunities for learning? So that was the road that I was on. And the Twitter also introduced me to a group of people who ran a MOOC called @MOOC back in 2013 maybe. And this is the last slide of the first night that we got together as a group of learners. And here I thought I was in a course, educational technology, massive open online course. I thought I was there to learn how to use digital tools. But I was in for a big surprise, because look what happened. This is the last slide of the presentation, and all it had on it was more questions, ? What do you notice about this slide? What can we infer about the learner's level of engagement? What do you think? Somebody like to grab the mic, give us some thoughts? They certainly are having fun, and they are playing. And I tell you, it just really blew me away. Right away, the whole @MOOC thing, and the cows come out and feeding off on each other, absolutely. And I remember being thrilled and aghast all at the same time. And it's become kind of my goal to try and create this level of engagement and just sheer joy in the learning process with students. It's very much the heart of my thinking about what global learning can look like if we can capture it as a slide in this way. Mystery Skype is another project that Twitter introduced me to, and here this is a ENG 3C class, my class, and on the screen is an ENG 3U class. And you know, Mystery Skype is works on the idea that two classes get together, they don't know where each other are, and they, through a series of questions and using Google tools and other things, students try to locate each other and see who can find who first. And in my experience, Mystery Skype are often used as, you know, digital handshakes before curricular learning takes place. And this is what we were doing. Nice. I love the Digital Human Library. So these students were meeting each other through Mystery Skype and then went on to do a series of activities together around the Rez Sisters by Thompson Highway, an Anishinaabe play. And so both of the classes worked together, and this was the way we initially got to know each other. Twitter also helped me learn about using a tool like PBWorks, it's a wiki, for creating a digital project or a global project that had nothing to do with another class. So through Ellen November, I learned about creating digital textbooks, and this is a digital textbook called Global Perspectives, a textbook by teens for teens. And over the last 5 or 6 years, my students have curated and written and edited a variety of pages from the Global Dignity event to Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Idle No More, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, stereotypes, racism, all issues relating to and in around global perspectives. And so this is an opportunity for them to learn how to work online, how to edit, how to add in images and hyperlinks, how to work with Creative Commons, where are you getting your images from, issues of attribution and permission, in a really low-risk environment. So if you're starting out with a class that hasn't had lots of experience or any experience working with other students or working in a online environment, this is a nice entry point because they can create and curate and edit without being in the public eye. So for many students, this is a nice way to go about it, go about getting started. A lot of people know about the Global Read Aloud, and the Global Read Aloud is also massive on Twitter. It's a great way to connect with people. It is another type of global project that allows for multiple entry points. So if you're, again, new, or if you're like me and you have grade 9s who haven't done any blended learning or global learning, this is a great way to jump in, because we all are reading the same book or listening to the same book. And we can start off doing the same tasks, and we can differentiate later. We can work with other teachers or not. We can do things like Hangouts or Skypes, or we can do things like a doc, or we can do Wordles, or we can do Padlets. It can be as intense or as limited as you need it to be. So it's a really good project. And the other thing about that I just want to mention with the Global Read Aloud is that, you know, it's not a project that I do all the time. It's a project that I might use depending on the book that the group votes on. If it's a book that doesn't really connect with my cohort, with this year's cohort, I won't do it. And so global projects, I think, also need to be seen with some flexibility and some, keeping in mind that we're choosing projects or designing projects for our students. And so some years the Global Read Aloud might not be a big hit, may not be the best decision that I make for my students. Here you see a senior class, an ENG 3U, 4U class, connecting and collaborating with a York Catholic District School Board class. They're connecting on the topics of racism, stereotypes, and indigenous ways of knowing. The other class was an IB class, studying ways of knowing, philosophy, and so they were really interested to talk to Native students about their understanding of indigenous ways of knowing firsthand, as opposed to just reading it out of a textbook. And so this was a very serendipitous event This was just something that came across Twitter. I saw somebody talking about wanting to connect with the First Nations class to talk about stereotypes, and so I put my hand up. I jumped in and I said, sure, I think we'll do this. Now, of course, you have to talk to the students and find out, are they willing to have these conversations? So I'll make the initial connection, but I always leave it up to the students as to whether or not they want to be part of that particular conversation. So I'm very conscious of their role and their voice in any of these projects. So what do you notice here too when you see them? So you remember the cow slide from ETMOOC, and here too you see students who are absolutely engaged in the conversation. They are really laughing, and they're very connected to the screen and to the people on the other side of the screen. And one of the things that, I don't know if you know this about global learning, but when people first start their work online, especially in Hangouts or in Skype, there's a lot of laughter because people are nervous and they're giddy and they're unsure, and so it's intense, but it's very playful, and as I say, there's lots of laughter. For sure. I get release for all of my students, and anybody else, please jump in with your experience, your advice, your tools, your tricks. I certainly would love all of us to collaborate and share what we do and what we know together tonight. So for sure, like Watt said, I too get releases from all of my students, and you'll notice, you won't notice, but if you look on the right-hand side, you can see 7 students, kind of. There are more students in the classroom, but there are students who have chosen not to be on screen. And so the camera is always positioned in a way that only those students who have the media release and who want to be on camera will sit in that area. That's great. Great question. Thank you for that. So now I just finished saying I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys use for your global projects. So again, if you'd like to write in the chat, or if you'd like to write on the screen and share some of the other projects that you might know. Thank you. The Digital Human Library is a fantastic project. What other ones have you, maybe you haven't participated in them, but you've heard about them? Thinking, what can you share with us in terms of your knowledge of digital projects? Yes, the Kids Guide to Canada. Really great project. Runs up until grade 8, I think, doesn't it? It's a K to 8, grade 1 to 8 project with Kathy Beach and Lee Castle. Yeah, we do. Jacqueline Calder and I, and I'll be introducing Jacqueline in a bit, we do the National Art Gallery too. It's a great connection. How do your kids like it? What grade are you showing the National Art Gallery tour? I'd be interested to know. You're teaching you're teaching Aboriginal, the NBE 3C, the grade 11 course? Okay, all right, Lisa. All right, and you want to connect with some, and you want to connect with native language courses, literature, not literature, but speaking courses. If that's the case, you can contact me later. We can try and I can put you in touch with our native language teacher at Wikwemikong High School and see if there's something there that you guys can connect with, right? So Lisa, I'll be really interested to hear how that goes. I've used it with the grade 12s as well. And are you having native language, the native art tour we've had with the National Gallery. That's been really great. Wow, Bernadine, you've done lots of things. Google Hangouts, Mystery, yeah, Skypes, virtual field trips, yeah, good. And what do we have on the screen? The UN Global Goals is so big now, isn't it? There are so many projects that are coming out. The world's largest lesson plan is one of them. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Jacqueline and I are, I mean, I'll talk about it when we get there, about the craft project, but that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, Watson, we'll talk because maybe I'm misunderstanding. Yeah, I don't have the information on the National Art Gallery connection off the top of my fingertips. Maybe Lisa can share that. Yeah, great, because actually Jacqueline did all of our connections for me. Let's End Poverty, yep, SOS for Love. Lovely, what a great list. Yes, the Ontario Student Ed Chat, which I've not yet been able to participate in because every time it runs, I'm on prep and I have no students. So, I mean, I could go, but that's not really the point. That's fantastic. There's also things like the EduBlogs blogging challenge, which is kind of fun. If you're also an English teacher, Write the World is another, it's a writing platform, but it has opportunities for good connections. Taking It Global, of course, you know, sorry, I got distracted. Taking It Global has lots of things going on over there too, so there's all of those things. Okay, let's carry on. Huge list, so impressive. One of the things that you know, always comes up, I don't want to say critics of global learning and global projects, but questions, let's say, if people say, you know, but it's not the tool that empowers global learning, you know, like it's, you know, we can't focus on the tools all the time. And that's true. We are absolutely talking about great pedagogy, but we do need to have conversations about tools, because even though it's not the tool that empowers global learning, we need those tools. And it is the design of the learning experience that matters. And I'm going to talk about design in a few minutes. But right now, I'd really love to see what tools that you currently use. So if you'd like to pick up one of the check marks or one of the icons and select the tools that you're familiar with, that your go-to tools, the ones that you like to use, the ones that students like to use. What do you currently use in your online collaborative learning? Yeah, Google Docs and OneNote for sure, and Hangouts, really a favorite of mine. I like the Hangouts, I think, in particular because we can record them, and then people who couldn't attend can view later. I'm a big Padlet user for sure. And I'd love to hear anybody who's been using Flipgrid, because my students are so shy that I'm still just getting them to get their voices out there, never mind their faces. So we, of course, I do a lot of stuff with a tool that I don't have here called Vocaroo, and so they record their voice, and I get them to do some work like that to break them in. If there are other tools, if you have other tools that aren't listed here, maybe you want to put them on the bullet points or write them somewhere on the screen. Yep, slides, yep, Google Slides, Google Docs for sure. I'm going to talk a little bit more about hypothesis in a few slides. Another tool that I don't have up here is VoiceThread. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Yeah, today's meet. iMovie, for sure. Great. So let's take a look then at the next slide, which asks us to think about what tools would you like to know more about. So maybe some of those tools that were listed there you'd never heard about, or maybe you have and you haven't had a chance yet to try them out. Are there any tools that you're curious about? Good, yeah. You know, Bernadine, my board is an Office 365 board, but I haven't learned very much about its suite of apps because I've been working in Google for so long. So it's on my list of things to do to learn more about the different apps and what they could do for me, for my students. All right, Lisa, yeah. Maybe you could say a little bit more. I'll talk about hypothesis more. I love hypothesis and I use it often. And my big goal for hypothesis is to get students from across classrooms to use it. Because I think that's where the real power is for the online collaboration piece. Not just that we see each other's work, but that we're responding to each other's work, that we're commenting on each other's work. And not only in a blog post, but against a text that we are reading and trying to grapple with the ideas of the text. Yeah. Adobe Spark is something that my students brought to me. I wasn't even familiar with it, but you'll see they made some products with it. Yeah. All right, yes, Bernadine, yeah. All right, that's great. So lots of good tools, and we'll see if we can, this is not a session on tools, but it's good to sort of connect with the different tools you're thinking about, and possibly I'll say something, or you can ask questions. I say something about them, or you can ask questions in the chat. And either I or somebody else can speak to them. So what I'd like to do now is focus our attention on actually a case study. So Jacqueline Calder and I started a few years ago a project called Craft Reconciliation. And what I want to show you is how the tools that we've been talking about and the ideas of serendipity, the ideas of connection and collaboration, and I'm going to bring in design, how they work together to support online learning. And so this is the little story about Wab Canoe. A few years ago, of course, Wab is a First Nations fellow from Northwestern Ontario who's been living in Manitoba and Winnipeg for some years and is currently the leader of the Manitoba NDP party. And a few years ago, he challenged Canadian educators and students to work together to create a vision for what reconciliation could look like in Minecraft, hence the craft. And so lots of people took up the banner. And in December of that year, Jacqueline and I ended up having a conversation in direct message. I was headed to Toronto by aircraft. I was at the Sudbury Airport and waiting for my flight. And she was on a via train heading to Toronto. We didn't realize we were heading to the same event. But we were. And so we had this conversation about, you know, hey, we need to do a project together, you know, let's think of something. And then she comes up with the Wab Canoe project. And I say, that's great, but I don't know anything about Minecraft. And she said, no worries, I've got you covered. And so off we were. And this shows you, for me, another illustration of serendipity. I mean, yes, we knew of each other, and yes, we had done a few things together. But again, it's that openness, the making oneself available, talking about what you want to do, what you're looking for, and being open to the possibilities. And I think that the more I work online, the more serendipity plays that role for us. So we started Craft Reconciliation, and I have to say that the collaborative piece of this is huge. From students to supervising officers, everybody, we needed everybody on board to help us out. We needed people Simcoe was generous. Simcoe County District School Board, so generous in offering us their to enter their D2L platform as guests and to enter their Minecraft server as guests. And so they made the space available for us to work. And when I say us, I mean a lot of us, because what happened was that Jacqueline went ahead and built this website. And so when people would search Craft Reconciliation, they would get our website. And so for a while, everybody in the country, there were people all over the country who thought we were Craft Reconciliation. And we were trying to build a project between Simcoe County District School Board and Wikwemikong. That's what we started to do. Well, by the time we got rolling in February, we had 400, 500 students in this project from all over Ontario. So we needed a lot of help. We needed people to, we got our principals to free up teachers so that we could do some professional learning together. I held it in my school, Jacqueline held it in her board, and then we did a 2-hour hangout to share that learning, to share the platform and how to work, excuse me, how to work the different parts of the project. So look for people inside your organization to collaborate with. Ask people for help. Right? You know, you'll need different kinds of help when you run projects. Even as Global Read Aloud and Mystery Skype, you know, you want a web camera or you want better audio, you know, seek out that help and ask. And you may be pleasantly surprised and get that help. Okay, I'm going to give you a chance to go and take a look at this trailer. It's a small trailer, it's just over 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes. The kind of tool that you can use, you can make this easily yourself in Adobe Spark. This one was actually made in Stupaflix, but Stupaflix is no longer, so Adobe Spark will do this just fine. And you use this kind of thing to promote the project to the students, to other teachers, to your principal, to your board, and to generate some energy. So I'm going to give you about 2.5 minutes. And when you come back, would you give me the check mark or the thumbs up and let me know, raised hand, let me know that you're back. Enjoy. Hi, Deb. You have a question? Oh, you're just raising your hand to say you're back. That's fine. Yep, thanks. That's me not being used to the ping. All right, I think we're almost all back. So that is actually a trailer for the second year, the Canada Craft or Canadian Craft project. But you can see that very simply put together, but we show that in the gym, we show that at assemblies, get kids interested and excited to be in that course, just as you would for other kinds of events. So we think that's important to generate that level of excitement and ownership for the students. So the next slide is a design slide. And I want to take a little bit of a look at it, so we'll spend a little bit of time on what the parts are. So we have a compass in the center, and around that compass we have the core function of the design of the project. So D2L is the platform where we all go in and we can use the threaded conversations. We can use the back channel, especially when we have Google Hangouts. We put our Mindomo pieces in there. Teachers and students can add visuals. That we put our handshakes in there. Lots of different things goes on inside of the D2L platform. The Google Hangouts are the second mainstay of our project. So for at least 4 times during the project, people we get together all the classes that we can. Sometimes we run a morning session, and sometimes we run an afternoon. Sometimes we run them on 2 different days. But we bring everybody we can together, and those are recorded so that people can go back and see them later. I'll just stop for a second. I see Susan's in the chat, so I'll continue on until I'm told otherwise. And so the third piece is the Hightail piece, and that is, if you're not familiar with Hightail, I believe it's hightail.com, and it's a public gallery. So it's a place where you can go and students can post short videos, they can post images, they can post artwork. So it's a very nice public gallery, and so we have students do exactly that. And then we use Mindomo, the mind mapping tool that's licensed by OSAPAC. And we use that for our knowledge building, and I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. Around the mainstay of those yellow pieces are the pieces in red. And the red pieces are the teacher's choices, and student choices. So some students will use Adobe Spark for their handshakes, or Superflex, or they'll use Padlet. Say some teachers will use Hypothesis for collaborative annotation. I certainly use Goodreads. I use literature circles and have students go in and post book reviews and have discussions around literature that's connected to the big idea of the global project, and so on. EduBlogs, PBWorks, Minecraft, of course. But all of those pieces are choices. And there will be some that teachers use that I don't have on the slide, because I don't always know what all the teachers are doing. So there's lots of choice on the outside of this, the center yellow piece. Those four mainstays are what we all try to participate in. And then how students demonstrate their learning, how they get together, how they have conversations will be the red pieces. And then the black pieces on the left are the pieces that are in the classroom. So whether you use notebooks or Word docs or Google Docs or OneNote or face-to-face discussions or lit circles or whatever it is you use, those are sort of those pieces, your routines, your regular classroom tools. And so we have all of these pieces going on at the same time. And so design for a project is really important. And you know, none of this is to suggest that you're going to begin, you might decide to, but not that you're going to begin your own project. But when you find one that suits you and suits your students, I'm hoping to show you this case study that shows that they can be messy. They can have multiple layers and multiple pieces, that they're messy pedagogically, that they use many different approaches, that feedback is messy. Right? That you're having to give feedback in D2L and in Goodreads and in Mindomo and in a Google Doc and on Padlet. That the choice demands different types of workflow decisions. So it's important to think that through and to think, because in effective global learning, we want to let go of everyone doing the same thing at the same time, all the time. So to do that, you have to think about, how am I going to pull things to me? How are students, am I working in a learning management system? Am I working inside of Notebook? Am I working more inside of D2L than not? Do I have another workflow process by which students are going to I'm going to pull things from students, that students are going to send things to me? Because one of the big questions that people in high schools will ask is, you know, but how do I assess all this, right? How do I make sense of it? And so sometimes global projects that can get in the way of people participating in them. But there is a way. There are multiple ways. But I really wanted to I want to say reassure you. You may not feel reassured, but reassure you that global projects are messy. They tend to have a lot of pieces moving at the same time, and that's perfectly fine. What about assessment, Deb? It's such a good question, and I'm not going to talk about assessment tonight. I'd have to do another presentation, or that's another conversation. But for me, I will say this much: that this process of being part of these big projects, multi-layered projects, really pushed me towards student self-assessment, and that's working really well. I'm about 3 years into it. I've just gone through the assessment process with my students right now in this last 2 weeks, doing what I call their evidence of learning document, and we're really growing into the process. So I do have things to say, but I'm not going to say more about that tonight. But I do want you to think about, absolutely, Lisa, I do want you to think about this design process, all right? That regardless of what your design process will look like, I want you to think about that design process, and I'd love to hear some of these thoughts that are coming into the chat, maybe on the slide, or somebody want to grab a mic. What are the shifts in our thinking and in our practice? What do we have to, what ways do we have to shift to make this design work? Right? What are the kinds of things that you think you would have to shift for yourself to make this doable? That's right. And what does that look like, Lisa, right? What does it look like to get away from covering content? You know, what are the pedagogical moves that that we have to unlearn? And what are the new ones that we have to learn? For sure, control. That's right. If we really mean it and we really want students' voice to be at the center of this work, they need to have some of that control. Yeah, the structures, right, Bernadine, like the timetabling and the scheduling, so important. Last year, my school moved to a 1-2 system, day one, day two system, but it wasn't fixed. It was kind of movable depending if we had a snow day or something, and so it made collaboration almost impossible. But the administration didn't think about the impact of that schedule on connecting with people outside of our building. So new ways of thinking about how do we connect, how do we design, yeah. And what's the accountability piece? When you have to show a principal or parents what's going on in the classroom, sometimes that can be a challenge too. Failing forward, yeah. Yeah, I like using that with students too, yeah. What's the feedback? Feed it forward, right? Feed that feedback forward. Nice. All right, so that's something that's really central. And I will say to you that however long I've been doing this for, a number of years, this is still something that I think about every time I sit down to design a project. If I sit down to design a long walk to water from this fall from Global Read Aloud, I'm just entering a new semester. What kind of global projects am I going to participate in? Am I designing one? Am I joining somebody else's? Who are my students? What are the shifts in my thinking? What are the next shifts in my thinking? So it's a question that you need to hold, I think we need to hold very close to ourselves and to our designing of these events and these projects. So I'd like to show you a little bit more about the craft project and continue on with the case study and looking at some student work. So we began our projects with a handshake. Julie Lindsay for Flat Connections begins her projects with handshakes. Mystery Skype, as I said, is a kind of a digital handshake. And so this idea of, let's get to know each other. Let's shake hands across the digital space. And I'd like you to actually watch two of them because they're both short. This one is the first one you see on the screen is about 47 seconds long. And the second one, I'm just going to hold you for a minute. This is Hightail. This is the public gallery I was telling you about. And inside there are many, many, many examples of students talking about what is your Canada. This is from last year's project, What is your Canada? This is modeled off of the CBC's interactive called What is your Canada? Most of them are 30 seconds long. I'm going to give you a couple minutes so you can watch Hunter's handshake, and then you can watch a couple of the What is your Canadas, and then come on back. Both of them are good, Susan. Yeah, What is your Canada is the second one, and the handshake is the first one. Nice. Yes, right, I see what happened. Yeah. Mixing and matching titles and links. Yes, Mariette, the handshake concept is really a lot of fun. Students like to make them, and of course not all students will make videos, but some won't put their face on the screen. So, I get them to use an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I get them to write down 5 hashtags that say they describe them, and then they hold it up kind of, in front of their face so they just see one eye or something, and then take a selfie, and then they post that. All kinds of different ways that students can post handshakes. Some of them are artists and so they like to draw. Some of them are singers, so they'll sing. Yeah, but they do have a lot of fun with it. And the same is for What is Your Canada. We always try to have another really quick digital product, and to get the kids, because they get the students making things, to get them away from to play around with the tools. The handshake concept is really nice. That's perfectly fine. And some of the What is Your Canada are really long. The model from CBC, they were all under, I think they were all 20 seconds. They were really short. And so we tried to get the kids to do, 30 seconds, but some of them did different length. Some of them get really into it. There's a lot of the students in that project were grade 7s, and you can sort of feel that energy too. Some of them are made with it. Yes, I think a lot of them are made. Certainly in my classroom, they were made with Adobe Spark because that would be compatible with our tools. Yeah, it is so easy. I know. Even I can do it. So if I can do it, I say everybody can do it. Are we mostly back? I think we might be mostly back. Do we have? I don't see Watson back. Okay, I think we're going to carry on. Oh, good. You were enjoying yourself, Watson. It's nice to see you back. All right, so I'm going to carry on, and so we start the project with this, as I say, with these kinds of interactive projects that get the kids working with tools, get them exploring, get them testing their limits, who can do what, because, frankly, if you have somebody in your class who's a real tech whiz, then that person could be teaching all the rest of us how to do some nice things, right? So we want to see, it's an assessment piece, what can everybody do, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to start the project. This is D2L. Jacqueline builds our classroom for us in D2L, and she does an awesome job. So it always looks a little bit funky. So this is last year's for Canada Craft, and you can see here, our menu of how we 1 to 6, where we start with our handshakes, and then What is Your Canada, Proud of Canada. Break the Cycle. Break the Cycle is an activity that we've done in almost all, I think, yes, in all of them, because it's about breaking stereotypes. And if you Google Break the Cycle, I believe you'll get the site, and I believe it's even a Hightail site. I didn't put the link out there, but it has kind of like cards or memes that we created, but other people have started them and we just mimic. But saying, what is it that you're not going to say anymore? So like, I'm not going to say low man on the totem pole anymore, or I'm not going to say I'm on the warpath, or those kinds of things. So again, it's a great, it's a small activity, but again, gets students playing with the tools, expressing themselves, and hopefully pushing their boundaries, as well as doing some critical thinking. We have our inquiry questions I'm going to get to, a survey, building knowledge, and then the crafting part, which is the making part of the project. What are you going to make to show your understanding of the big question, and then finally some reflection. So here's Hypothesis very quickly. It's a tool that layers over the website. You load it, you have to sign in for it, you have to sign up for it, and then you have to sign in. You can see over, I don't have my pointer really working here. Let's see if I can, right here. Yep, over there you can see where the sign-in is, and you can see the annotations at the top right-hand corner, and then you see the students. They're putting the highlight text. The highlighted text is in gray, and then below that is the student's comment or the student's question. You can teach researching skills through this tool. You can anything that's web-based, you can use this tool with. And then the students can comment on each other's. So you have here, down here at the bottom, you have reply, you can share, you can embed images in the reply box, in the comment box. There's lots of different options. And if you dig a little bit deeper in Hypothesis, and I'm not going to today because that's another talk, the data that's available for you as a teacher and as a student to see which articles you spent the most time on, how many times you commented, how many times you replied. When you're talking about assessment and you're thinking about how do I gather evidence of learning, wow, Hypothesis is just remarkable for that. It really makes the job easy. So I'm very keen on it. And as I say, my goal is, and I have some conspirators around the province who like this idea, like of getting some maybe senior classes, and that we choose, 3 or 4 articles and we put them out there, and that we just have this running conversation. Wouldn't that be cool? Like we could just anyways, it's another idea. Another idea here is, in terms of design and thinking about design, is VoiceThread. Now, last year, as I said to you, the Canada Craft had a lot of grade 7s classes in it, and so there was 2 or 3 senior classes, one run by Julia Fleming out of Simcoe County District School Board. It was an e-learning course, and a couple of other senior classes, and the senior students made it known that they would like to have a conversation just between them. And so inside of Canada Craft, we designed a little side project for our senior students. And we had a prompt, you can see the girl who's in the picture, Valine Jules. You can see that there's a prompt, and then over to the right you see her letter to KKK Canada, and she's a spoken word poet. So we had 4 prompts in this small project, and students go in and they read the original text and then reply to it, and then they or comment on it, and then they reply to each other. And you can see here one of Harmony's comments, "I agree with you," and made the same connection. The poem was very well written and spoken. The title really stood out to me as well in the poem when she said, "Oh, KKK Canada, your home on native land." Because before the Europeans came and invaded the country, it was, I agree, how ironic it is to have to stand up for the national anthem every day when it's not even all that true and accurate. So good exchange of ideas, and then obviously the conversation continued. And so that was, when you're thinking about design, sometimes you have to design within the design, which is what happened to us here. And again, great support from Simcoe and from Jacqueline Calder. So here I want us to try something else that we do, which is called student-directed inquiry questions, and the tool is dot storming. So what we do is we have students generate a lot of questions at a certain phase of the project, but we want to group the students across the project. We don't want to say, oh, you 4 students in my class and your 4 students in the other class. We want our students to be in groups that are virtual. So we get them to generate their questions, go into dot storming, put their questions into dot storming, and then they vote. And then by the nature by the nature of which they vote for the questions, they are so grouped. So let's go over to this. Thanks, Susan. There's a link in the chat. Head over to Dot Storming and go ahead and log in with your name. Choose a card in the top right-hand corner and write your comment or question. And give that tool a try because it's pretty interesting. I don't know if it does. I haven't tried that. That would be something we'd have to give it a shot. It'd be really good if it did. Thank you. Oh, nice, Farron. Thanks. I tend not to be such a mobile user myself, so that's my own limitations. Great to have you back. So kind of a fun tool, and you know, it's as I say, we collect those as students vote on them, and then yes, the kids are, Susan, for sure. And then we're able to group students, and I'm going to show you what we do with them when we have them grouped. And you know, Susan, the other thing is that because of my jurisdiction and where I work, a lot of my students, I would say a significant number of my students still don't have devices. They may have iPods, but they don't necessarily have devices that would run data. And even if they do, they wouldn't be able to afford it. So that's one of the reasons the mobile thing is not as prominent in my own thinking. So I really appreciate the question and the answer. That's great. All right, we're all back, I think. So let's take a look at what we do with the students when we get them all grouped. So building knowledge, knowledge building is, this comes from, it's mimicked from the Knowledge Foundation, the Knowledge Forum. And so that software is, I mean, we probably could have asked them and got it for free, but Jack said, well, why? So she decided to build it in Mindomo. So Mindomo, again, is an OSAPAC licensed tool, and so we've mimicked it. We have all of our tabs, our topic areas in different colors, so that as students build their theory and theorize, they would use the different colors to explain their thinking. So I'll take you through that. Here's a question for group number 19. Why do Canadians treat First Nations people differently? And here you can see an exploded, like a long view shot of what the mind map looks like. There might have been 6 students in this group, anywhere from 4 to 6 students in this group. Remember, they would not necessarily be in the same physical classroom. They would be from classrooms across Ontario. And then you can see here, I'll bring in a little bit closer, there's the main question. And then you have the red boxes representing what your theory is, orange, what do I need to understand more about, and so on, so that the students are really working on building knowledge together, building that background knowledge. So that works out really well. Now, what happens next is that the teachers get to decide what they're going to do next. So some teachers might have students do a research report. Some teachers might have students build a wiki page or curate and write on a wiki page. Some might have an oral presentation. What will the demonstration of learning be that comes out of this knowledge building will be tailored in the classroom based on discipline, what the subject area is, the grade level, is it a grade 9 class, is it a grade 7 class, and so on. No, Jacqueline, we actually, in D2L, and I'll just flip back here, right, one more, here. So right here on this where it says building knowledge, if you went into number 4 and you clicked in Desire to Learn, if you clicked into that, it would have, each group would have its own thread and have its own Mindomo link. So if you're thinking about designing something along these lines, you just have to get a hold of me, or better yet, Jacqueline, but I certainly can provide an introduction because she's the designer on these pieces. So finally, we have, like we've talked about, collaboration. Certainly here in this, there's lots of collaboration going on in this knowledge building. We have connecting. We have thinking about design. And so all throughout the project, those main themes, those main threads continue, and they support all this work. So, but really importantly, one of the things I learned in my work on Twitter is that part of connecting and collaborating is sharing. It's about giving back. It's not just about taking. And in so doing, when we give back, and we give back publicly, and we give back online, we give back to our network, we're potentially creating new serendipitous opportunities for learning. And so reflection is a really big part of the projects that Jacqueline and I design. And here is Hunter, and you'd like to go off and listen to his reflection and see what he has to say about it. Please give us a check mark on your way back. So I was really proud of Hunter because he took a real leadership role in the ENG3C last year, and was willing to do some of these pieces that were more for some students more risky, you know, videotaping himself. He's clearly nervous, but he does a good job at talking through how he feels about the project. But students were given choices about how they reflect. They reflected during a midterm and they reflect at the end of the course. And they can reflect through video, they can reflect through Twitter, or they can reflect through Vocaroo. And it's important because I need students to reflect. I want them to learn to get their voices out and to be heard, but they won't all do it on through a video. And they won't all do it through Twitter either, but these gentlemen did. These are again a grade 11 and a grade 12. I'll look at Austin here at the bottom. And you can see the numbers because they're writing a series of tweets. So this is his number 2 tweet. My favorite activity that we did in Canadian Craft was talking with other students in the back channel during the hangout. His number 3 tweet. This activity connected with me because I like to work on things online. It's just easier for me and more enjoyable. And his 4th tweet at the top of the screen, it connected with my learning interests because I like to hear other people's opinions on different topics as well. So really some more great reflections, students thinking about their own preferences and what they enjoyed doing as well. More sharing. The last Google Hangout of the project, you see Jacqueline on the screen. This is my classroom, and you can see a couple of senior students sitting in the shot, and then we have individual students on the right-hand side presenting to the other classes what they made. And what they made is not always Minecraft. Some of what they make is artwork. Some of what they make on the right-hand side is a poem. Some of what they make is definitely is Minecraft, and so students have the opportunity in many schools to build and to represent their learning, whatever the big question is in last year's question is, what does it mean? What does it look like to be a great Canadian? This year's question was, how could we make the world a better place? So those are all the ways in which the students share and put their ideas out there. These are all many of the links that I talked about today, not all of them, but many of the resources that I talked about, and also just some contact information for you from me. If you want to get a hold of me, you can through Twitter. That's my professional blog WordPress site, and if you're searching in particular for craft reconciliation blog posts, I think there might be a series of 8 or 9 of them that I wrote. Search the blog using hashtag craft reconciliation to best find them, I would say, would be my suggestion there. And I think that's it for me. I hope that that the ideas of serendipity, connecting, collaboration, and design will infuse your thinking and generate some great ideas of your own or ways into global projects that already exist. I really appreciate that you came tonight and you played along with me, and thank you very much.
So I'm just going to advance to the next slide and talk a little bit, to my next slide, talk a little bit about what OTF needs from all of you before you go tonight. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much. Julie, that was absolutely fascinating to not only hear about a wealth of tools, but you know, all about your project and how engaged your students have been. Don't you all agree that that was just fascinating to see your case study, and I hope that it's an inspiration for many others to get going on something like that. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about feedback from OTF and so on. So all of you, thank you for attending, and finally, thank you to Julie.